Hello and welcome to this special episode. Now, you all might very well know that animal rights and animal welfare is something that's very close to my heart. I called in the CEO of the PDSA, and he manages the operation and is going to tell us more about the operations and the welfare around animals in South Africa. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Faizal. Thanks for having me.
Now, animal welfare and animal rights and anything to do with animals has always been a passion of mine personally.
Yeah.
People know me for that kind of thing. If I see something happening on the road, I'm going to make a noise about it. If I see a horse and cart moving by and you're beating up the horse, I'm going to stop and say something. And I've got into trouble many times for that. My personal relation with the PDSA goes back a long time. My family has been always involved with Arthur and the rest of the guys and that sort of thing. But we know that you're the CEO and you're carrying most of the burdens when it comes to managing the PDSA. Tell us a bit about Patrick and why you do what you do.
Well, I've been in the welfare business for about 5 years. I was initially involved in child education, and an opportunity came up to become involved with the PDSA. And it's an organization that I've known for many years. I grew up in Cape Town. Always had pets and always been an animal lover. And it was interesting for me to distinguish the PDSA from the SPCA. And that's one of the first things I did. Traditionally, I'm a marketing guy. I'm a manager of people. So you said I carry the burden. I don't really. I've got fantastic staff at the PDSA. We have 88 staff nationally. And my job is easy because they're all passionate about animals, as you are, and it's great. We need people like you on the streets. And I'm passionate about animals as well. So I come from a people managing background. I've been in healthcare, in sports marketing, in the media business, and then education. And now I'm settled in my position looking after the PDSA.
But this one's different. The others are all obviously corporate business. This one's different because you're getting to do what you do in terms of managing an operation and what you do best. And then at the same time, you are giving back to society, and a society that doesn't have a voice of their own, but that through people like yourselves.
Absolutely.
So how do you feel about that?
It's fantastic, as you say, that I can do my job to the best of my ability and have the bonus of knowing that I'm giving something back to community and that I'm looking after those sentient beings, those animals who can't come and tell us when they're in trouble. So it's a great privilege for me to be able to do my job and get the reward as well. Personally.
I love the idea that you're using the word sentient because many people don't understand the concept of sentience, and they don't understand that animals actually have a deeper being and that they recognize their family and they communicate with each other and they have pain and they have all kinds of things. Many people don't see that.
Yes.
And therefore organizations like yourself play a vital role in what you do in society to ensure that people have healthy pets and that they are well cared for and well taken care of. Looking at the PDSA, you list a myriad of operations from neutering, spaying, as you mentioned to me now. You talk about vaccinations, you talk about operations, you talk about education around your pets. Tell us a bit about those operations.
Right, well, the services that we provide come on a variety of levels. At the Bridgetown Hospital that you know so well, we have 4 full-time vets there, one of whom is an orthopedic specialist. So we're able to perform advanced orthopedic surgery and also, as you talked about, the sterilization procedures of spaying and neutering. But we're also into more of the primary health care in that we have around the country 8 mobile vehicles as well. So while we do more advanced stuff at the hospitals, we have just incidentally a hospital here in Cape Town, another one in Soweto, and the third one in George. We also do have these mobile clinics that go out into the less structured communities.
Yes.
Yeah, in Cape Town as far as Atlantis, and around here in various areas in Cape Town. And that service is, as I say, on a primary level. So there we're looking after deworming, we're looking after sick and injured animals that possibly get brought through to the hospital. And obviously we encourage sterilization, which is a big thing. If I could leave a message to people, the two most important things I would say is please have your animals vaccinated, and if you can, have your animals sterilized.
Because both of them are preventative from a certain point of view.
They're absolutely preventative, and in older age we know that a sterilized female dog and cat will live a healthier life having been sterilized. And so many of our problems with animals in rural and in urban areas stem from the overpopulation of the animals.
Now, I've had cats all my life, and I know that the current 3 that we have, they've been sterilized because it's been an issue with my mother. The minute they're at a certain stage in their life where they're at the right age, they need to get sterilized. And what we found was that they're very in-the-house kind of cats. They're very fat and big, and they live with us for a very long time. The one we've got now for 17 years, and that's the average.
As old as you, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the average span that they live with us, and that sort of thing. So it's about having this preventative care that you're speaking about at the same time. Tell us a bit about the operations. You say you have 80-odd staff. I didn't even know that.
Yes, we do. We have around 50 in Cape Town. Remember, we have the Bridgetown Hospital, then we have a clinic in Athlone, and we have another clinic in Mitchell's Plain, plus the 3 mobile vehicles. So a total complement of 50 people looking after that. That includes the administrative staff, which is obviously a big part of our business as well. So I look after the administrative side, I look after the people and the staff and the services, and then our senior vet, Dr. Emerton, looks after the clinical aspects, if you like, of the services that we provide. But the services are wide in terms of the surgical procedures that we perform. From, as I say, the sterilizations, which are bread and butter, if you like. We try and do as many of those as we can in a week, sometimes up to 50 a week. And then on a need basis, injuries, sick animals that require certain surgical procedures. Obviously, we have X-ray facilities, we take blood tests, and we look after animals as best as we can. Remember, we're different from some of the animal welfare organizations in that we look after the animals of pet owners who can't afford to go to private vets.
Now, Patrick, the one thing that doesn't add up for me is the numbers when it comes to the matters that you're discussing, and that's, we know that medical care in any area today is expensive. You go down to the pharmacy and you find a Band-Aid and some medication for anything, whether it be a flu, anything like that, it's very expensive. And then it comes to animal welfare and care, and I suppose it's the same thing. Medication is medication, and it's expensive. Then you've got the operations and the staff and many staff, and you've got the running around, and you've got the theatres running, and you've got the salaries going. The numbers doesn't add up for me, because you are offering the community a service at a nominal cost, and sometimes I don't think it's even at a cost, because the service is out there. How do you cope with that? How do you deal with that?
The first point to tack on there is, you're right, we most times don't cover our costs. The PDSA runs at an operating loss each year, but it's with the help of individual donors or corporate organizations. We get trust income, we get other income from our investments that we have, so we generate income from those investments. And then we get income from the fees that we have unfortunately been forced to charge over the last couple of years. Most of the animal welfares now have a system of tariffs. It's not sustainable otherwise. But you're right, there is a gap. The numbers don't add up. And the medications are becoming more and more expensive. But you're right, the people are the real cost. And as I said, we've got 88 of those, and they cost money. But it's with the help of the public and the generous public. Bequest income is another one that we obviously rely on. It's not something you could budget, but it's those supporters that allow us to keep going. We didn't talk about the history of the PDSA, but we're in our 78th year here in South Africa. 78th year, yeah.
That's a long time.
It was originally founded in 1917 by a lady, Maria Dickon, in the United Kingdom. And then the PDSA came to South Africa as a branch of that UK organisation in 1937, started in Woodstock. And then in the 80s we became totally autonomous from the UK, so we are totally separate now from the UK. But since 1937 we're in our 78th year, and still going strong, and it's because of the support of the people, because otherwise our costs would run away with us. Yeah.
Of course. Going back to the actual operations and still staying on cost, is the bulk of the cost is it an over-the-counter matter with regards to, here we see a patient and the average cost per patient that comes in for vaccinations and that kind of thing is this cost, but people can only afford this amount. So do you run the loss there, or you're running the loss when it comes to operations and those kind of things?
More on the over-the-counter stuff, the day-to-day runnings. You can imagine out on the mobile vehicles, we never turn anybody away. So we do have a system of tariffs, but if somebody arrives with a sick animal that needs to be dewormed or vaccinated and they don't have the money, we will help them. So it's on those...
and that's without obligation?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting.
So while we have to pressure people to pay what they can, obviously, we will never say to you, listen, you can only afford 50 Rand, the consultation is 70 Rand, I've only got 50 Rand, we're going to help you, we're not going to turn you away. Provided, and there's a proviso, that you qualify for our services, because from time to time the services are abused, because they are intended for the people who can't afford to go to private vets, but sometimes people arrive in a very fancy car at the PDSA and demand a discounted service. And we do our best to limit those numbers of people, because they are in fact taking away some of the welfare rands that we've worked so hard to raise to help people that can't afford to. So we have a means test, we have cut-offs with regard to income that allows you to use the services at PDSA. But yeah, from the sort of the more advanced surgical things, if it's a big orthopedic case, we would give the customer a quotation beforehand, which would get close to covering our costs. So that's not really where we lose the big money. It's on the day-to-day high volume procedures that we lose. Yeah.
Apart from the challenges with regards to finances, which is always going to be a challenge because of the model that you employ, and yes, the model is there to assist animals animals that cannot afford to do what they need. In the end of the day, it is about the animal to you, and I can see that. The other challenges that you might experience, what are they? Is there an expertise challenge? Is there challenges when it comes to marketing, education with the public? Are there things that they need to know that they can help prevent some of the things that come to your doorstep?
Yeah, remember, we do look after the animals, but all those animals that come through our doors have owners. So we're looking after people as well.
That's the dangerous part.
It is. Unfortunately, I mean, if you talk to a veterinary surgeon, he'll say to you, it's a pity that they come along with a person as well. They want to just deal with the animal.
Yes.
But that's part of what we do. We look after communities. And education is a huge part. We're working very hard, especially amongst the youth, to encourage them and to educate with regard to primary health care of animals. Teaching a young kid of the age of 10 how to look after their puppy and how to look after their kitten, because so often these animals come as gifts and surprises, and then people tend to neglect them over time if the passion wears off, if you like, of a new member of the household. So education is very important. We work hard on that. Arthur George, you mentioned his name earlier. He's been active in the community for many years, as you know. We spend a lot of time and effort on getting in front of children. Last count, I think last year we were in front of about 9,000 kids in the close area that's in the Cape. We obviously do it in George and Joburg as well. So the education is important. And from the marketing side, it's all really about awareness, because we can't expect people to help us with the tasks that we're busy with if they don't know what we do and who we are and how to get hold of us and how to donate or where to donate. So we spend a lot of time and effort on that as well, because without top of mind awareness, we know in society these days there are so many needy organizations and people around.
Patrick, you spoke about all the challenges that you experience, and you spoke about all the joys of doing what you do. And there's a nice combination between the two, and I think it's a bittersweet relation that goes on there, because there's challenges, but yet at the same time, you and your team really enjoy what you're doing, and you make that change in society that is much needed. I can't think of the world at the moment, especially in Cape Town, because I'm from here, without the PDSA when it comes to animal welfare. I think that if the PDSA wasn't there, there'd be a serious gap. What can society do? What can they do to make things better on your side, to help you do what you do?
Faizal, I think it's about community involvement. People know about the PDSA, but a lot of people only come to the PDSA when they need our services, which is an understandable thing. We are a service provider. But I think what I could ask of the community is to, when they have the opportunity, to become involved with activities. They don't necessarily have to be fundraising activities, but just in terms of the awareness of the PDSA. Telling a good story about the PDSA to one or two of your friends, as you know, will spread like wildfire. It's those things that help spread our network of supporters. That's the big challenge for us. Our network is quite narrow in that we are narrow in our area of service provision. In Cape Town, for example, we don't expand out into areas where people don't need our services. So let me give you an example. Very few people in Bishop's Court even know that the PDSA exists. They know of the SPCA, but they don't know about the work we do. Those are the challenges in terms of moving forward, I think that the model should change, in that we should spend more time in front of the people who don't qualify for our services, because they can certainly contribute and subsidize the costs of the services for those who are in need.
Going forward, you look at the situation where we find that although the PDSA's model doesn't dictate that you primarily deal with animal abuse, for example, because you're on the welfare side, and we have other organizations that's on the advocacy side, dealing with lobbying different bills that might come up in Parliament. They're busy lobbying against animal abuse when it comes to vivisection and various other components related to that kind of thing, and that's not your focus. But at the same time, there must be these days that you have abuse cases coming in by the door, because it happens, and things happen, and people do things to animals that they're not supposed to do. How do you deal with that?
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say that everybody that works at the PDSA is an animal activist anyway, just by definition of being animal lovers.
Yes.
We're not necessarily active in the community as such, but we all do care about that, and we obviously respond.
And you speak out against things.
Absolutely, and I'm always coming out in support of the SPCA or any of the other animal welfare forum members who have issues with regard to cruelty or bad practices. So we make a stand and we make a noise about it. It's just not our day-to-day operation or focus. For example, as you say, if an animal arrives at our doorstep that has been abused, if it's brought in by the owner, we will have words with the owner and try and understand the circumstances in which the animal is being mistreated. And if necessary, we hand those over to the SPCA. We have a very good relationship with them. And they're in the law enforcement area as far as animal rights is concerned. They're in fact empowered by an act of parliament to
so they can get someone arrested and all those kind of things.
Absolutely, they can go and confiscate animals. They have a team that moves around. So we get in touch with them and we make sure that the animals' rights get looked after, and we make sure that any pet owner that brings an animal to us in a bad state gets severely spoken to and educated, because a lot of the time it's to do with ignorance in terms of how to treat an animal and how to look after an animal. And the other times it's about affordability, which is a difficult one, because people love animals, but sometimes one shouldn't be buying or taking on an animal in your household if you know you can't afford to look after them. Having said that, we have many very poor people who have fantastic companions in cats and dogs, and so I would never be one to say, don't have a pet. I think it's wonderful. But sometimes the cost implication has to be taken into account.
Patrick, for you personally, when you see something going wrong, and I'm sure many times you've come to the front of the building where people are dealing with the actual intake of patients or animals, and you see this case where someone has severely beaten a dog or a cat or has deliberately injured an animal. How do you feel about that?
It's devastating. You know, we spoke about sentient beings earlier. It's just that I immediately put myself in the skin of that animal that cannot speak out against the perpetrator of the violence. So you get an animal whose tail is probably still wagging even though he's been beaten. It's devastating to see, but it is an opportunity to educate the owner of the pet. So we try to focus then on the person who brought the dog in. Obviously we look after the dog's injuries, but the immediate response is, let's see if we can help the owner, because indirectly then we'll be helping prevent that in the future.
I must admit that, you know, in the work that you do, you seem to have lots of patience, because I would have lost it a long time ago, which I do many times on the road. I kind of lose it. I would stop in the road trying to get a dog out of the road. I've done this twice or thrice, and I think I almost got my own car knocked. But the point was that people would hoot behind you and say, what are you doing, kind of thing. But I'm trying to get the dog out of the road. I've done this thrice. It didn't go down that well with traffic behind me. But the point was that, why is it that people cannot take this extra 1 minute? Because here's this dog running from one side to the other, totally lost, and someone could knock him over. So if you can take 1 minute to save the dog, why not? And many people are not thinking along those lines. It's like they're just oblivious to the care of other beings. And it's something that, it's strange that I'm saying it on the program, but it's something that really irks me off. And I think that with the work of organizations like yourself, to better educate people all the time, members of the public need to support you so that you can support those other animals out there that need the work that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, look, you know, it's not, you don't have to be an animal lover to do the right thing. I always say, ask yourself the question, what's the right thing to do? If you see an animal in distress or a person in distress, and if it's within your power to do the right thing, do it. So many of us don't. We're too busy getting on with our own days that we don't. But you're so right. It is a frustrating thing to watch. And the thing is to do the right thing. Most of the time you will be rewarded for that.
I think that I've got a message for those people. If you continue with your daily life every day and you're not interested in doing the work that the PDSA does, then at least assist the PDSA. Give them some money, give them a debit order, or give them something that will help them do the work that's the responsibility of all of us. Every religion today advocates that we need to take care of the creation. Every internal self tells you to look after the creation. So in the end of the day, if you're not doing it yourself, there is other people doing it. So help them to do their job, and that's why I called you to this interview. I wanted to say that to the public. You know what? We can't all do it, but help the people do it that do it. Looking at the future of the PDSA, I know that you guys have come along 70 odd years, and that's a long way to have come for an organization that does what you do. Many organizations depend on huge budgets from people in government and all kinds of things. What do you see happening in the near future as the CEO for this organization?
It's about sustainability. It's about financial security, really. That's one of my biggest responsibilities. Obviously looking after the animals and looking after my staff, but ensuring that the PDSA will still be around in 15 years' time. It requires some astute business decisions to be made with regard to investments and the marketing activities that we get involved in to encourage donors and to raise funds from various means. So it's about getting to a point, and we've been through some very tough years in the last 5 years. Financially, I don't have to tell you that. But it's about getting to a point as an organization that we are self-funding and that we don't have to continue to operate at a loss. And so that's a big challenge, but it's one that we're all up for at the PDSA. And I'm quite confident that you and I could have this interview in 50 years' time, and we would be able to talk about the PDSA's 130 years as opposed to the 80.
No, of course, I know that will happen for sure, because as long as the intentions of the people involved are pure and and those intentions carry throughout in the work itself, it will continue to do what it does and serve that purpose that it does. Patrick, in conclusion, we're looking at telling the public how they can get involved. Is it volunteers? If they want to contribute, how do they contribute? Is there a forum that they belong to, for example? And you mentioned the estates earlier on, and estates form a big part of what you do in terms of your funding and your investment model. How does the public help you, in summary?
I think the best way is to contact us directly. Having a conversation with somebody at the PDSA is the easiest way to find out exactly how to get involved. There's a whole host of ways, as you say, from volunteering your services to making small donations on a one-off basis, to regular donations, to including us in your will, perhaps even to influencing some of the trust companies that you're involved with to contribute. So the best way, the first stop is the PDSA. You could get us on our website, you can phone through to either one of the hospitals around the country, but talking to the PDSA is the way to get involved.
Now, Patrick, we do have your contact details up on the screen for the duration of the show. We've got the website up. I've been to the website earlier on today to look for some information, and I found a host of things that I didn't know the PDSA does, although the fact that I know you guys for so long. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, and if I can just say, Faizal, thank you for your personal support of the PDSA over the years, and your family, and for the communities, and for Dean TV. We really appreciate it.
Well, that's Patrick, CEO of the PDSA, and some of the work that they do in society to make the life better of animals in and around South Africa. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.